And welcome to Jim and Ben's Movie Adventures. My name is Ben, and with me this week is...
Moose from Step Up 3D.
You are the heart of this podcast. And you have to be Moose. We watched Step Up 3D. This was
Can I just say, I have an apology to make because I was a little negative on the last cast you said
are my
we're
dreams
doing
coming true?
Step Up 3D, and I may have had one of the best times that I can recall watching a film. So look, this podcast, it would not be worth it if you weren't stretching me out of some comfort zones and occasionally serving up something I would never, ever, ever watch on my own. So so Step Up 3D, like I said, I'm leading with an apology, but why don't you jump into a synopsis of this masterpiece that we are now going to analyze and discuss at length.
I'm so excited. Moose, now a freshman at NYU, promises his parents he's done with dancing to focus on his studies. But after accidentally getting pulled into a street dance battle in Washington Square Park...
It happens, right? We're all just going about our day, and then we just get pulled into a street dance battle, you know?
He impresses the onlookers and is quickly recruited by Luke, the charismatic leader of House Pirate, a diverse crew of underground dancers.
I just say, I'm just going to interrupt this because I'm like, when I found out that they lived and, trained in the apartment above the nightclub that they also manage and operate, I was just like, well, it's a dream. It's a dream, isn't it? Like, this is a Dominic Toretto situation. But continue.
Luke brings Moose into his world, a Brooklyn warehouse turned dance haven where Moose meets the rest of the pirates. And Natalie, a gifted and enigmatic dancer whom Luke shares a growing romantic connection. As the crew trains for the prestigious World Dance Jam, they face pressure not only from their longtime rivals, the House of Samurai, but from financial threats that could shut down the studios forever. Tension rises when secrets about Natalie's connection to the rival crew are revealed, threatening the pirates' trust and unity. Meanwhile, Moose struggles to balance his academic life and a blossoming relationship with his best friend Camille. When everything's on the line, the pirates must overcome betrayal, personal doubts, and fierce competition to deliver a performance that proves dance isn't just an escape, it's their identity. Thank you, ChatGPT.
Look, the bank's going to take the farm, Ben, if we don't do something about it, all right?
And not everyone has Bruce Wayne just to buy the bank.
Not everyone has Bruce Wayne to buy the bank. So, look, give me some facts because I've got a few facts for you about my enjoyment levels in this movie.
Released in 2010, directed by the maestro, John M. Chu, who has directed Step Up 2, The Streets. Step Up 2, The Streets, Now You See Me Too, and Wicked, written by Amy Anderson and Emily Meyer, starring Rick Melambari, Adam G. Savini, Shani Vincent, and Alison Stoner. This is a first. Primary choreographer, Nadine Hi-Hat Ruffin, and runtime of 107 minutes, budget of $30 million, and a box office of $159.2 million. Them's the facts. Jim, tell me how much you love this movie.
Okay, look, again, this is one of those things where I'm just going to be all over the place because it's like, as I was watching it, I was like, I'm going to have to go on this podcast and I'm going to have to say I really liked it because I really liked it because that's me. That's what just happened just now was that I watched Step Up 3D and I had a great time. But I will say that I didn't, when you said we're doing Step Up 3D, a little bit in my defense, shall we say, my knowledge of the Step Up series was I saw the first one.
Yeah.
And the first one is this, can I just say the parallels between Step Up, the series, and the Fast and the Furious franchise are just insanity when you actually put it all together, both behind the scenes and, when you actually look at the films and plots themselves. So I'd seen the first one, right? Channing Tatum, and I can't remember the female lead's name, but they ended up getting married, so good for them. But look, this was a situation where I had seen the first one and it is functionally a romantic drama, and I didn't really like it that much. It was very serious and it was also a little bit silly and I thought a little bit contrived, but
The
good for
whole plot of
Channing
the first one
Tatum.
is very much marrying like classical dance and street hip hop and them coming together as a couple.
Exactly. And look, good for Channing Tatum. It launched his career. It introduced us to him. So that's all good. But then I basically abandoned the series. And I did know in the back of my mind that John M. Chu got involved at some stage. I just didn't know it was at this time for Step Up 2: The Streets, and then this one, Step Up 3D. So when I actually went and had a bit of a look, I went, oh, this is one of the John M. Chu ones. I'm probably going to really like this. And then sure enough, from basically the opening few frames, I was like, yep, I'm going to like this, because I really like John M. Chu as a visual director. And he has done a really great job of the visuals in this film and the energy of this film and just making this film pop, while also doing a complete Justin Lin on Fast and Furious duties, whereby he took something that was overly serious and gritty, almost to the point of alienating people who weren't into the street racing genre, and he kind of just made it big, fun, silly, over the top, and enjoyable. And that's exactly what has happened here. The film's plot that you have described is absolutely trite, ludicrous, over the top, all of these things. But John M. Chu knows that, and he is leaning into that really, really hard so that we have a good time at the movies, which is exactly what happens here. It doesn't overstay its welcome because there's not a lot of plot to hang its hat on, but we have a great time. There is a lot of amazing dancing and real great visual spectacle. And like I said, self-awareness really papers over a lot of the things that we would otherwise call cinema sins.
Yeah, I'm so glad. You know, the Step Up series from the second movie onwards has been a pleasure of mine for years. I genuinely enjoy all of them, and it's because they're kind of like brilliant and stupid in just the most perfect way possible. And I think number three is the best blending of those, which is why I chose it. I love choreography. I love deep into live performances. I enjoy the art form. But the art form in this movie is so much more than just dance. It's ridiculousness. It's like when a magician gets to do a trick on film and they get to use the camera as part of the trick. That happens in this too. If you're choreographing a dance for a movie like this, you've got to include the fact that it's made for a movie and do just the craziest, most ridiculous stuff. Like the final dance battle goes, I actually should have timed it, goes for a ridiculous amount of time. No kind of, I mean, yeah, they're really talented people, but like what they're doing and not missing a beat and not missing a move and not missing anything for that long is just super fun and super energetic to watch. And then you just get the wonderful bits of dumbness between the dance bits. Like you've got the dance crew and you've got like the Argentinian twins and you've got these people, you've got them practicing capoeira, you've got them doing parkour. What does any of this have to do with dance? You'll find out in the final dance. Like it's just this amazing thing. You've got them falling in love by gravity defying Slurpees. Like there's just it's just num 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 num. It's just one of those films.
But again, that only works if you are completely self aware,
Yeah.
leaning into that tone and enjoying the ride, which is something that Justin Lin famously did in the Fast and Furious franchise to great success. And John M. Chu is, as I say, doing the exact same thing here. There are definitely versions of this film which is really more like what I thought we were going to get, which is basically a straight to DVD B movie style Step Up film. And I didn't enjoy the first one all that much, which was supposed to be the serious grounded take. So therefore I wasn't looking forward to it. But once I realized what they were doing, which you
get
cotton
straight
onto
away.
very, very quickly with this particular film, it's like, yep, nope, I'm here for this. I'm here for this. This is the good time. So I will say as well that this film reminded me a lot, in a good way, of a superhero movie. The superpowers are dance and the insane ability to use that dance. It's no more ridiculous than the Avengers in New York not getting killed by that alien army that they're fending off by themselves, but because they are highly skilled and highly competent, they're the Avengers. We're watching them dispatch this alien army. It's exactly the same here. Every time the music starts and the characters begin to dance, they are on another plane of quality and existence, kind of like what you've alluded to with the finale there, but it happens throughout the film. Dance is their superpower. When they are dancing, they are capable of literally perfection and anything because it's a movie and we're leaning into that and showcasing what is literally some of the best dancing you will ever see in your life.
My favorite trope in this movie, and I don't think actually many movies get away with it, but this movie has mastered it. It is in a movie, in a scene, someone shows up to a dance and it's all choreographed, and there's no way they could know the dance, but they know the dance. Happens 3 times in this movie, I think. I love that in this movie. Like, he shows up to her birthday party, they're all doing this choreographed dance. He knows the dance. There's no way he could know the dance, but he knows the dance. Or when they're just dancing in the street, or when they're just dancing randomly, just knowing the moves of the dance is so fun to me. And it happens in every Step Up movie from Step Up 2 onwards.
But that's also because this movie is borrowing so much of the genre stylings of musical theater,
Yes.
whereby in a musical, people burst into song and the music is magically there and they know all the lyrics and it's all working for them. It's almost like they step out of themselves to do the song and then they come back into the actual world of the narrative, if you like. And this was very much that. While the dances are often battles, so they're pre-programmed into the plot, some of them aren't, like the Fred Astaire Ginger Rogers dance in the middle
Which
of the
is my
street.
favorite scene in this movie because of the way everyone around them treats it. Because
Yep.
everyone's like, it's in their way, it's a nuisance, people are complaining that they're dancing, whereas in a musical, people would accept it, you're right. But they're playing off that genre of like, we're just dancing and we're living, and everyone's like, no, I don't want to turn up the music, leave my trash cans alone, get off my stairs. Like, I love
Yeah.
that.
But also they're then allowed to drift far from the music because
Yeah.
it's breaking reality in this sort of wonderful way. So there are some things as well that I do want to talk about technically with the film, because with it being one of the early 3D efforts, there's some good and some bad and some very, very clever here with regard to technology that I definitely want to talk about. But I will say, look, in terms of a narrative, there's not a lot here. It leans very much into established tone and established tropes and it's established cliches. But because it moves so fast, because it's so self aware, because the cast is actually quite likable when they're going about all of this stuff, and of course, because the dancing is absolutely incredible at pretty much every single juncture of the film, you can let all of that go because it's done with such good fun and good energy. So that's really all I have to say then about the narrative of the film.
I mean,
I've
that's
got a
all
few
there is to
technical
it.
notes, but yeah. So did you know much about this film on a technical level?
No, I remember it as one of the first kind of, not first, but a prominent 3D effort once 3D came back with the not red and blue glasses. And the film does suffer from that bit where when it goes into 3D mode for 2D, the outlines of the people get a bit shiny and you get those kind of weird pop of the background before the 3D effect's about to happen. Like, quite a few times people dance at the screen and you can tell that that was a 3D element, and it kind of looks like they almost look 4K or 8K, and the rest of them around them is a bit blurred out. They do a couple of cheap stuff with balloons and bubbles and Slurpees and things like that. But as far as what it took to achieve and that sort of stuff, no, educate me, sir.
Well, it's one of those efforts where when you know what the struggles were with early 3D technology, you can see that they were quite clever with their use of that technology. Now, I say early 3D technology, this is really the new resurgence of 3D technology that James Cameron was really pushing. So he had huge success with Avatar in 2009, doing this version of 3D without glasses, which really prompted that sort of craze, if you like. But his camera camera technology called the fusion camera, which was achieved by functionally very cleverly bolting two cameras together to achieve a 3D camera rig, was something that had been in use from really around 2008 onwards as he was developing it for Avatar and as he was trying to push this technology as well. So Step Up 3D is one of these films that was a very early adopter to shooting natively in 3D, but they were doing it with, as far as I can see in terms of research, what was functionally an experimental version of the Fusion camera system. They were using Sony F23s, which were cameras that were fairly good for that sort of thing, but they were also not as perhaps high quality as some of our modern cameras. So one of the problems that they had was they didn't have a huge amount of dynamic range in their camera sensors. So that means that the distance between your shadows and your highlights, or your, darker points of the image and your brighter points of the image, isn't as far, and it tends to clip your highlights in particular if you have high contrast scenes. And that sequence, which I did like as well, where they're doing the Fred Astaire and Ginger
Yeah.
Rogers in the street, really struggled with that because it was in and out of shade and then broad daylight, and it was all a oneer as well, so there was nowhere to really hide there. Then that issue got worse when you actually made it a 3D Fusion camera rig, because you had to be very, very careful about your focus point and having that disappear into the background. So that sort of double image, when it wasn't perfectly in focus, which you do get away with, particularly when you put 3D glasses on, does actually, the image just starts to tear
Yeah.
a little bit, like when you actually try and push it. But one of the other things that is a deal breaker, I guess, with this sort of 3D technology is that they really needed the image it created something that looked very, very clean and not very cinematic. It was very much a video kind of aesthetic. And a huge movie like Avatar, well, they're going to get away with it because they got visual effects for days to actually come in and basically repaint the whole mood of the thing. Plus, they're using different cameras. But for this one, where we're functionally just shooting the movie and we're not actually having huge CGI elements in terms of backgrounds and aliens and that sort of thing to help us do the disguising, what we end up with is just a really clean kind of look, which would have looked really bad. And you can actually see it look a little off in places, except John M. Chu has again leaned into that and created this really interesting and vibrant color palette
Yeah.
with the costumes that people are wearing, the contrasting colors, the bright colors. And he said, okay, if our aesthetic's going to be insanely clean, because it has to be for this 3D rig we're using, then we're going to make these colors really, really pop in order to give us the biggest spectacle possible, which will also kind of hide some of that digital smoothness, and while at the same time basically revealing the vibrancy in this color palette because we've got this clean image. I just think it was a really clever combination of saying, what is this technology good at? What is it not good at? How do we make the weaknesses into strengths? And how do we disguise the things that it doesn't do as well? And every time I looked at this film, I was like, yeah, you can see some of the struggles that they had. You can also see them trying really, really hard to play to the strengths of the equipment and hide the flaws of the equipment. And I just went, I'm pretty pleased about that. I think that's clever filmmaking. And look, there are sequences that don't really hold up as well. There's some focus issues here and there. There's the final sequence in the train station is incredibly artificially put together. There's a lot of what appears to be digital beauty work on actors' faces, which again was just coming into vogue at that time because they're trying to make this really clean looking film and a flat film for the 3D effect. But again, you get away with it here because they're trying this bold, vibrant style and putting these colors on big display, and you get away with that cleanliness of the image. So sorry, that was my
Oh,
nerd
good.
rant
It's
there,
really good to
but
hear. Like, obviously you look at this movie and you think there's so much hard work in the choreography and the dance and the production. But yeah, you don't necessarily think about the hard work that goes into kind of they put in thought to make the rest of the movie look the way it did and to kind of achieve the 3D that they did. Talking about the dance, I'm not qualified to judge dance. But if I'm going, wow, that's cool, I think they've really achieved what they've wanted to. And the comparison to the Fast and the Furious really works well here. Because a lot of the Fast and the Furious is you're like, wow, that looks really cool. I wish that was me, or that's the coolest thing I've seen on film. This is the best dance that is kind of hyper realistic, I think, that you can get on film, and it does have that attitude of almost comic book moviness to it. Like it's that kind of like, yeah, we're kind of doing things that are unreal. Like the final battle with the lights on the chests and the lasers that go up in the sky and the multi phases of the dance are really cool. But I think my favorite dance in the film, other than the street dance, the Fred Astaire dance, is the water one. I really
Mm.
like the water and the splash and the all that sort of stuff, which is weirdly enough a callback to the second film. Because there is a final dance with Moose and his team against another team where it gets flooded and they dance and they win that one. So it's kind of like a mini callback at that stage. I also want to point out that this movie doesn't rely on you seeing the second film at all, but it does reward you for it. Like when he brings his dance crew in, that's the dance crew from the second film. You know, you learn a few things about that sort of stuff. Camille is actually from the first movie. She is the foster sister of Channing Tatum's character. So she skipped the second movie, came to the third movie, and she then comes back for other movies and things like that as well. So it is this kind of really interwoven universe without necessarily carrying main characters over from film to film. Moose is, I think, the most recurring character in this franchise. I think he's in all of them. Even one of his just a special appearance. He's not in number one. But yeah, like it's strange that if you come to someone and said, "I want to start a dance movie up, and I want to build a universe around it, and I want to build sequels that interconnect with each other, but they don't have the same main characters each time," you'd be laughed out of a room. But that's exactly what they've achieved. And I'm curious as whether they slapped Fast and the Furious up in front of the producers and said, "This is what we're going to do."
It's just the same business model. That's the thing that gets me, where it's like you take the first very grounded approach, which, as I said, is so niche it almost alienates people, except that this happens to hit and be very successful, probably because we haven't seen a lot of these sorts of
Yeah.
films. And then you just say, now we're going to dial it up to 11 for the sequels. We're going to go silly, we're going to go big, we're going to go fun, and we're going to completely take this into different genres to what we were dealing with the first time. It's exactly what happens in Fast and Furious. And then you look at it here and you go, well, this is the dance version, I suppose.
Yeah, it's joyful. It's fun. It's celebrating the medium it's created on, right? It's celebrating dance. It's celebrating cinema. And all it's saying is, please just enjoy this movie. And as I said before, if you've watched each one, you get a little bit of a bump saying, hey, that's the guy from the other one. But you don't need to, because it's about the dance, it's about the visuals, it's about the hokey story. I mean, if you look up the movie posters for each Step Up movie, it is literally almost cut and paste. There's a boy holding a girl and there's some dancers around them. But it's like in Miami or in the streets or 3D or at a school. Like it's just the venue changes, but the story is very, very the same. And then you just get this really, really cool kind of dance. And I think that sort of dance, I think it's a bit hard. I think you actually have to be very, very talented at choreography to get people to connect to dance like that on film. Like every dance I've seen before, I've always enjoyed much more in person, much more seeing it live, much more hearing the noises and the effort and seeing the use of space. In a movie, that always feels a little bit flat. It always feels a little bit kind of like you're looking about it on a 2D plane when dance is such a 3D multi-dimensional aspect, like a discipline. This movie lets you feel the multidimensionality of it. This movie lets you feel the levels and the movement and the people. It showcases individual dance styles, everything from kind of pop, lock, robot to kind of like breaking to classical to jazz to ballet. It's such a celebration of dance, and I'm so glad it's on film. There, I got it off my chest.
Yeah, look, I agree. And I think that it is a really, really fun sort of movie. But let's talk, because there are certain things you can't criticize. The things we would usually criticize, like story and character and plot and all of that, we've just basically said that it's not useful to criticize those things in the traditional way with a film like this because of the tone of what they're trying to achieve. That said, there are still a couple of things that I went, that's a shame. That's a shame
Can
that
I
we
get one off
did
my
that.
chest?
Yes.
By sheer fact of the people in this movie have to be able to dance, there is a dip for some actors in the quality of their acting because the dance is more important. If you unless you want to be cutting to stunt doubles or backup dancers, all your mains have to be able to dance. And you've got people like Moose, who is brilliant both dancing and acting. His goofy kind of lovable things. But our main actor, Lucas is the character, I think. He feels like a model acting. And look, that's not necessarily his fault. His gift is dancing, and he's a good-looking dude. So I mean, he's got 2 of 3. But yeah, it's sometimes those scenes, especially the between him and the female lead, feel a little wooden. Don't feel the connection too much between them.
I think you're right, though, because they picked the right thing to focus on.
Yeah.
It was far more important that they were the world's best dancers, and they'll try and get the acting to look as good as it possibly can. Now, that said, there are some great performances in this movie as well. It's not every cast member, and I actually think the lead was fine. There's a couple of the supporting cast where
The villain's worse.
acting is quite clearly not there, it's not the number one of their triple threat that they.
Julian's the villain, and yeah, he's just like, okay, man, there's a reason you're not in this film a lot speaking and just dancing.
But again, it also feels like, look, is that even a criticism? If I could do anything in my life half as well as those people could dance, I wouldn't care
No,
really if I can't do the other things
absolutely.
to 150%. I think for me, what it comes back to a little bit in terms of criticism is less so that. And there's a couple of technical things, much as I talked a lot about liking a lot of the technical choices, there are also a couple of technical choices that I went, I didn't love that. And it's particularly because I think throughout the film, John M. Chu does a fantastic job generally of photographing these amazing dance sequences. And I think he does a great job of putting the camera exactly where it needs to be, showing us what we need to see, getting the edit right, and as you say, making it really visceral and making it work without making it disorienting for us as the audience. But there are a couple of moments where some technical trickery is used that for me just gets you second guessing exactly the human element there. And I don't like that because these are some of the most skilled people on the planet. And I want to see that and not be thinking, oh, was that a camera trick that maybe actually made them look that way? I'm thinking particularly here of, and I don't know dance particularly well, but there's one particular performer who has these very jittery kind of robotic movements with his head.
Yeah.
And he's showcased 2 or 3 times in the film. I don't know, maybe that's popping and locking. I'm not sure, whatever. It's, it when you see it.
It's isolation is what they kind of call it, which is a type of popping and locking. It's where you kind of move individual parts of your body and musculature to create that effect.
Right. Well, it's very good, right? And he's excellent at it. But at the same time, when I was looking at that, I was like, I think there's some frame rate manipulation here. I think we're dropping frames to actually have his performance aspect look more impressive. And then towards the finale, they do that quite a lot, and it becomes more obvious that we're actually doing some frame dropping, some camera manipulation. And when I see stuff like that, or even worse, when I think I'm seeing stuff like that, it just takes me out of the film enough to go, I just want to watch the performer and I want to see what he was capable of, because that actually would have been enough. It was already clearly incredibly impressive. So I didn't need the extra bit from the camera to sort of help it out. Now, on the one hand, the whole thing's artificial because they're not doing all of this in one continuous perfect take anyway, but there are still these things which sometimes take me out of it just that little bit more than perhaps I would have seen otherwise.
I hadn't thought about it, but now that you bring it up, I think you're 100% right. It does feel like frame clipping for sure. And I think it might be because of something else you brought up, because of the smoothness of this film and the way the picture is shot. I don't think that style of dancing probably shows as well as it should in this format. Because if you think about the movements and things like that and how kind of jagged and abrupt and kind of pop and push it is, it probably suffers a bit from how they're filming this film. And the way they've compensated for that is clipping out those little frames just to really accentuate those movements. Because I've seen people do this in real life, and in real life, it's almost like a magic trick. The way they kind of manipulate their body, and like their head moves separate to their body, but they're actually moving their body and keeping their head still, but it's this illusion of movement in another part. So yeah, I get it. I really do, actually. And as somebody who enjoys watching something so pure on film, you're right. Like, I just want to see the dancer do their awesome thing. So yeah, no, look, fair pick and fair criticism. And as I said, not something I picked up, but something I fully understand what you're talking about.
Well, look, overall, I liked it. I wasn't really expecting to, but I did get that glimmer of hope when I saw
Do
John
you
M.
have a bit
Chu.
more trust in me now?
No, absolutely
Whoa.
not. So,
But I picked such a banger. As I said, I've never been secret about my like of these films. I may not bring them up because I know most people in my friendship group haven't seen them. But yeah, I'm glad you got to see a little peek into why I enjoy these films and why they're a genuine pleasure to watch. And look, this now opens the door that we can watch maybe a couple of others down the track. So, before we leap into what I'm sure you're going to pick is a sleeper and a banger as well, let me tell you about where you can find us, and when you do find us, how you can really help us out. So, Jim and Ben's Movie Adventures, YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes. Use those words, you will find us. Once you find us, please subscribe and like. It really does entertain us. Every time we get a new subscriber, I'm like, oh, that's so cool. I get very, very excited. Comment. Tell us what genre of movie that most people don't think about that you love. Tell us if it's dance movies. Tell us if it's documentaries. Tell us if it's something that maybe we wouldn't immediately think to watch as something on this podcast. If you want to follow us on social media, you can do that too. Jim and Ben's Movie Adventures on TikTok, Jim_and_Ben on Instagram. Thank you very much for coming on this unexpected, pleasant journey with me, Jim. Now tell us what journey you will take next and whether you're inflicting pain or joy.
I don't know, actually.
That doesn't fill me with confidence.
I know how it felt for me, which was definitely conflicted, but I think it's time that we took another look down a cinematic road that we've been down before, but we haven't hit this end of it. I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off. We're going to go back to the Jurassic series, but we are not going to be in the Spielberg era. We're going to skip to a very, very different era. We're going to look at Jurassic World Dominion. Ben?
Why?
Have you seen it?
Yeah, I've seen it.
I think,
Look,
there's
a new Jurassic on its way. Let's get prepped, but man, like Jurassic World, cool. I mean, hey, look, I've blocked a lot of it out of my noggin, so this will be a fresh watch for me anyway. I'm excited to go on this journey.
I'm not trying to inflict pain, but I think enough time has passed that we can actually take a real good look at this now and go,
you haven't picked a secret banger.
What happened here? Because I think we all need...
So you're looking at this as more of an autopsy?
A little bit.
Forensic kind of explanation here.
And I think as well, it's going to have you go, wherever that series goes in the future, let's remember this point in time.
I am happy to be the Watson to your Sherlock in this situation, and I cannot wait to watch Jurassic World Dominion with you next week.
Hopefully you'll all join us for that. So see you next time. Thanks for listening/watching.
Remember, you're all BFAB.
Yeah, right.
Born from a boombox.